We're back. This is the Psychedelic Coach podcast. My name is Kole.
My name is Tah.
So, this conversation is probably one of the most important conversations to have, to be honest with you, when it comes to integration, because it's all about, in fact, let's break down today's episode basically into three parts. One, what would tracking your information do for you? Like, why, if you don't track something, you don't change it? Or why should you track something, or could you track something so that you could make adjustments? Two, what would integrating those insights that you're tracking do for you? And then some practical tools and techniques for integrating and grabbing that data. What do you say, Tah?
I say that feels perfect. And let's start off by talking about tracking. What is tracking? Is what that guy Daryl does in The Walking Dead? He's following people around in the forest. He's tracking. No, tracking is a really important tool that we utilize with everything that we do. I track myself every day, and it's following your progress, following your results, following your intentions. It's following yourself, and it's using documentation. And so I know that word, right? Documentation. Oh my goodness, we have to document. As a nurse, all I did was document all the time. I was documenting, but when I'm with my patients, I was documenting what the doctor said. I was documenting. And I was really awesome at documenting as a nurse. And it was one of the things that I was taught by an amazing woman named Phyllis Quinlan, who is one of my greatest mentors in nursing. Shout out to Phyllis Quinlan.
Yeah.
Phyllis, not to be confused with Phyllis Brown. Phyllis Quinlan. And she taught me to make sure that I document everything, cross my T's and dot my I's, and I'd be able to go back and see what I did. And nobody could ever trace me back to not doing anything, because if it's not documented, it's not done. And so it's something that I've put into my life with journaling, and I've made it really simple. It's not like the complex, really detailed situations around nursing to prevent lawsuits, but this is me tracking things like, what do I feel like on a scale of 0 to 10? What is my energy like in the morning when I wake up? What is my clarity when I wake up? What is my intention? Like, I track all of these things. I have journals from 7 or 8 years ago, and I can go back and see where I was, what my intention was, and if I've actually progressed into the spaces that I wanted to get into. And so I have all this documentation on myself, and I do it just for fun. I do it for fun and for exploration and for efficiency and efficacy of what I'm doing in my expansions in habit creation. And if I'm looking to create a habit and I'm not tracking myself, and I can't see when I was distracted, or I can't see when I fell off, I won't be able to, it'll be hard for me to tie things together. This is a particularly amazing way to do things in today's world, because we have so many things that are distractions. We have 98 tabs open on your laptop, 25, 27, maybe 40 apps open on your phone. You got people calling you. You got all this stuff going on, 90,000 emails that are unchecked, like my email address. Like, all of these different things are pulling you in a million directions. And to be able to have something that's very simple on a day-to-day basis that you can check off and see where you were. If something doesn't happen, you can actually trace back to see where you fell off the wagon, and or where you made that turn that made all the difference in your growth and expansion, all the difference in your new habit creation, and so on. So tracking is a wonderful thing for me. Some people call journaling tracking. Some people call tracking journaling. I do it all in one journal, so it's all the same thing for me. And so I'm tracking all the time, and it keeps me accountable for things. So I'm excited for this conversation on tracking.
Yeah, as we have coached people in many different capacities, from health, wellness, fitness, fat loss challenges, workouts, the most common thing that we started to find is that they would come back and be like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I didn't lose weight this week. I don't know why I put on 10 pounds this week. I don't know what happened. And that's when I started to understand the importance of data. Now, I had already started creating the Condor Approach workbook, but not the way that people know it now. I just called it my body book. I was looking at the physical changes, the aches, pains, headaches, stomach aches, things like that. And one thing that I started to notice is that people don't do things the way that we do. And so a lot of times I was really operating from an assumption, or like this, what do you mean? Did you do this? Yeah, only to find out that it wasn't true. And it's not that I think people are trying to not be honest. I think they delete and distort information and then have a hard time either recalling or speaking to it once we'd get on a call. And so that's where it started to be, okay, what you don't track, you can't change. And so if we know that we want to make certain changes in someone's lifestyle, or I want to make it in my lifestyle, then what are my metrics for seeing if the choices I'm making or the things I'm investing in are getting a return on investment, an ROI, like they say in business terminology? If I start working out and I'm not getting the results that I want, could it actually be a hormone thing? Could it actually be a new medication I started? And so if you're not tracking anything and things aren't working, you don't have any idea what to turn to or where to make adjustments. And so I watch as people go work with like mushrooms, for example, didn't get the result they wanted after 90 days, it slid back. Let me just go work with 5-MeO, the Sonoran desert toad, or let me go do the bigger thing or Cambo or whatever. But it's because nothing is tracked, everything gets changed every single time because it's still not working. And so it's like always starting over or throwing the baby out with the bathwater on some level, because you're also throwing away things that might be super functional for you, or not changing the things that really need to change, like a relationship that you're in, not some childhood trauma, or trying to find more things wrong in a ceremony setting to ignore what's waiting for you when you get home. And so this idea first for the Condor approach was, okay, what do I track that it's natural or my own conditioning and experience has caused me to do it? And like you said, how am I sleeping? How's my energy? Do I feel more rested than yesterday? Do I feel less rested? Without any contrast and comparison, you don't really know what direction you're moving. And for me, having so many medical conditions and things in the past, I only knew that I was in pain. So tracking was important, not to track the pain, but to know the difference between a 6 and a 7 in a pain scale of 0 to 10. Because if I had gone from a pain of 9 to a pain of 7, how and why? Why is it lower one day? What did I eat? How did I sleep? What did I drink? What was going on? Who did I interact with? Because for me, all those are signs, signals, and cues that I had to first have more data so that I didn't keep generalizing.
Yeah, the data aspect is probably one of the most important things post psychedelic experiences for me. And I'm going to speak about my experience with stuff. And when I first started to explore psychedelics, there was so many things coming, there was so many changes happening. It was really challenging for me to keep track of all of it. One of the first people that after my first experience, you remember, or maybe you remember, there was a lot coming up for me. I could feel everybody's energy. There was so many things, and you actually had to take me to sit with somebody to support me in an integration space. And it was such a gift to be taken and supported in that way. And, what I remember being invited into was a space of, hey, just write down what's going on with you. Just write it down and see if there's any differences. Write it down, because there may be some conflicting things with the way you used to think and the way you're thinking now. And they may be causing conflict inside. And so I took that and I said, okay, all right, I'll do it. And I started popping open these journals and started writing. And I started keeping track of what was going on after my psychedelic experiences. And I started keeping track of all the old thought patterns and where I felt stuck and where I was feeling unstuck after my experiences. And then this is when I started to be able to really lean into building on my intention for my next psychedelic experience. I was like, okay, I opened this up and I did it from a space where I wasn't aware. And then when I did have an intention with my next psychedelic experience, I was able to lean into this space. I was able to get support from the facilitator. I was able to get support from the other people who were actually in the journey and utilized the whole environment to support me in leaning into my intention. And so as I tracked that in my journal, I started to craft my next intention. The next time I want to go, I want to explore moving this out of the way and creating a new habit around this. And I got into this place where I had dismantled my old habit structures for a little while, with just enough time to see something different and see different possibilities. And then I started moving into a different habit structure. And then I started to write every day about what I wanted to reinforce and what I wanted to do. And while I was in that very neuroplastic space, which is where your brain is malleable and ready for new habits, I was able to create new habits around how I spoke to myself, around how I spoke to other people, around how I interacted with people, what my posture was like, and all of these things that changed the habits of my nervous system. And one of the most important habits for me was in the first experience that I had with you, when I was coming out of the man, I was in such a shit show at the beginning of that experience. And you were like, "Hey, how you doing, man?" And I was like, "I'm okay." And you said to me, "You're amazing to me. Why can't you be amazing?" When you said amazing,
Oh,
my whole body lit up. And I was like, "Ooh, that felt really awesome when you said amazing." I was like, "Yeah, I am amazing." And the way I said it changed my whole body lit up. And I was like, "Wow, I want to continue feeling that." And so what I did was I took that and I started to write in my journal every day, "I am amazing. I am amazing." And I started to, when people started to ask me, whenever somebody would greet me, I would ask them, "How are you?" And they would ask me, "How are you?" I'm like, "I'm amazing." And that it would bring me back into that feeling space and it would reinforce the feeling that I had of amazing. And so I made a habit out of that. And then after a while, it became this habit of seeking that amazing feeling. So every time somebody asked me how, I was like, "I'm amazing." And I would ask people how they were so they could ask me in turn how I was, and I could say amazing. And it became this habit. And so I started to play with different words. "I'm fantastic. I'm stupendous. I'm miraculous." And I would bring myself into these spaces over and over again to where it was my default. And something as simple as that changed my whole energetic pattern, my whole energetic pathway, and it created a habit that is now baked into my nervous system. When people ask me how I am, I take it back to how amazing I am, and it refreshes my whole system into that amazing space. Before I was like, "I'm all right, I'm okay, I'm good." The canned responses that didn't really mean anything, that were just cover up spaces. And now this authentic space of me showing up and amazing actually gets me to get back into my amazing when I fall off of it. And so I've reprogrammed my nervous system around that whole situation. And so being able to track that, to be able to track the words that I use, to be able to track stuff really simple like that. It doesn't take more than a minute a day for me to write something like that. And it's just been really wonderful. So I wanted to share a little example of me and my habit forming situation with tracking.
yeah. And I remember that really well because, and what got it to really stand out to me was you would say, "I'm good." And then when you broke your back, when you fractured your back and you couldn't walk for 3 months, when I would check in on you or text you, you'd be like, "I'm good." And I'd be like, he's saying the same response to, "I have a broken back. I'm good. I don't need any support or help. I'm good," as when he's having a really great day. And that just didn't resonate for me. Or I guess I was curious. So I remember that night really well. And I remember thinking, like, you're not, to me, you're a lot more than good. To me, you're amazing. And to see, and this is also why for me in journeys, there's a place to do that work on your own and with yourself. And then there's certain reflections and opportunities of being able to talk and being in community containers that reflection can be so powerful and so important too. And as people go to journeys, what typically happens is they have a big realization. They don't sit and think through it of like, how do I integrate this in my day-to-day life? What state will I need to be in? What strategies am I going to need, or what we would call a state and strategy assessment? Where am I right now? How do I maintain this? How do I go home and inform my environment of what support could look like, or what I'll need to track, or what I would need to change, or whatever? And so part of what makes the biggest difference first is, yes, there's a space of not overdoing, or if someone's high performance, trying to figure out how to extract the maximum benefit. And at the same time, what you don't track, you don't change. So if you have a big realization and your intention is to go back and have a conversation with your partner, and then you go, "No, it's fine, we're good," because right now you're in forgiveness and, hey, everything happened for a reason, which I don't ascribe to, by the way. That's another podcast episode. And facts. But then as the days goes on, the weeks go on, the old patterns force you back into compliance of the way that you were. You might have been improving for your own perceived betterment, but that doesn't mean that your environment agrees or that it won't do everything that it can to put you back in line to what it's used to and what the habits already support. And by not being able to articulate it to a partner what the changes are and what it might look like as far as support, or if you're sliding off for that matter, then people tend to fall back in line because life can get hard and you can only get so far from willpower alone. Everyone needs support. Everyone needs strategies outside of, no, I'm good now. And I think that that's what drives people to go back into ceremony month after month, not to continue the lessons they already have, but it's more to go get the same lesson. And if you're returning to ceremony for the same lesson, you're missing the point.
Agreed from my vantage point, and there are many folks that will miss the point, and maybe they'll have a different point. And this is where
Mm-hmm.
having a facilitator or a coach or someone that's integrated with your intention is important, because there may be people who don't ride with how we roll, and that's okay. So
Totally.
the having practical tools for me is one of the most important things that I could do and that I invite people into with post psychedelic experience situations, is having these tools, having something where you can write things down. And many people will be like, I don't like to journal. I don't like to freehand journal. Cool. We got prompts for you. And you just check this off and you circle this here and you X this here. And you can go back in a week and be like, oh my gosh, I did notice that my back pain went a little lower. I noticed that I feel a little easier in this space. And since I decided in this ceremony that this painting was coming off the wall in my house, I'm noticing a levity in my body as the days progress without this painting in my house. These are practical tools of really finding things that are in the way, moving them out of the way so that the deeper things can actually come to the surface and be moved out of the way too. If that's what you're looking to do, or the deeper things that are in there that are awesome gifts that you haven't been looking at that are in the shadow can come to the surface too. We have a lot of things that are in the way. We have a lot of traumatic circumstances that make habits in our bodies and in our minds that protect us from other people and other circumstances. If we don't get that stuff out of the way, the wonders that lie and dwell beneath that may never come to the surface. And so having these practical ways to track, do you want to continue feeling awesome? Cool. What does that look like? What do you do when you feel awesome? And if, when that comes up in the ceremony, I feel awesome. This happens. Cool. Let's write it in your journal. Every day, check in, see if you can get this feeling in there and expand on it. Write it down. Are you from a 0 to 10? All of these things are really practical applications. So,
I,
yeah, I think
yeah.
it's important stuff. I know.
Well, that is literally what the Condor Approach book is. And for $12 on Amazon, that's 1 week. I highly recommend anyone do at least a month. The integration is not optional, but at least in the psychedelic space, people are having an idea that there's more to it than it just being like some concept that they're not applying. Because one, it's tracking how are you waking up. Two, it's before you go to sleep, is there anything that you need to say to be able to get a good night's sleep? It's asking questions that we identify. If you're in a sovereign space, it's not that you are in feel good emotions, it's that you're in acceptance and understanding and clarity of your emotions, and not trying to even fix them and change them, but merely an allowance of them and being able to tolerate them no matter what they are. Having a daily intention. What do you want to know, do, be, or understand? What are you committing to for you today? Tah, how many times do we have our coaches or clients, they're great at the morning journaling and they don't do the night journaling, which to me, it's usually the people that I feel like make promises to themselves for their physical health, mental health, or something for their self-care. And somehow days keep going by when they're not really doing the things for themselves, and they somehow conveniently never have to get back to the question at night that asks, did you do the one thing you wanted to do for you today? Whether it's, if you're getting physical therapy, did you do your exercises? Tah, for you and for me, after you broke your back and then I had a 40-degree scoliosis curve, started getting muscle spasms and all of that, doing that physical therapy, I could say that it's self-care, but it's also what's necessary to get back so that my body can get to a state of ease to heal itself. I had to do some things to strengthen. And luckily, since not lucky for you, but lucky for me, you had already gone through this process of healing your back that allowed me to see mine a little bit differently also, but it took a daily commitment. If I didn't do it every single day, I felt it within 2 days. And I feel like most people say they want the truth, but you can't handle the truth, because the truth is you're not doing the things for yourself. It's still a concept in your mind, not an embodiment, not a practice. And this book can help you do it. The problem is people that don't want the evidence of what they're not doing do not do the night journaling.
Nope. And the night journaling for me is really important. Let's talk about the Condor Approach book, the tracking method. What is this, the 12th edition of this thing that
I
you've
think
edited?
so.
How many of y'all, if y'all ever see Kole in person, if you've used this guide, or just send Kole a message saying thank you, because this guide is absolutely mind-boggling, and the things that people have told us about their experiences with this book, even if they haven't had psychedelic experiences, has been awesome. People are like, "Hey, listen, I don't need anything else. This book is just it. I don't need my." We've had one person say that they just stopped going to their therapist. I got more out of this book than my therapist because we're not tracking anything. And so this method in this book is tremendous. And I find that when people cut corners in life, they will cut corners in this journaling process.
That's
And
right.
and this is one of the spaces that if you're looking at the habits in your life, we can tell. And this is one of the things that helps as a coach, right? And so y'all listening to this, right? This is a Psychedelic Coach podcast. So I'm sure there's some psychedelic coaches listening to this. If your people are not getting the responses and the results that they want and they're tracking, get them to open that book and tell you what it is that they're tracking. What's going on? And if you have to get granular, cool. If they're saying that they're not having results, you want to see their summary, right? Because this book has a weekly summary and it has a monthly summary if you have the 30-day version. Get the summary and check it out. And if it doesn't line up, ask them to go through page by page and tell you what their score is. And if they've done it, they can probably see the subtle differences or the big differences in the space. And if people are not answering certain questions, that might be spaces that they're dodging in their lives. And if they're dodging things in their lives, that can cause a habit to get deepened even more. And so being mindful of this after psychedelic experiences is really important. When people slide back into their old stuff, they're in a ripe space to make a habit around that too. So being able
Mhm.
to use the guide, as a coach and as a person who is being coached, it's so tremendous. It's such an asset.
Thank you, Tah. And to be perfectly frank, any coach that isn't working with this with their clients is working 10 times harder than they have to, and can potentially be creating a codependent dynamic versus an interdependent
Mm.
partnership, because this guides someone back to themselves. So even if you could never afford a coach personally, for $12 for a physical copy, or you can get the ebook for free. So even if you're like, oh, but $12 a week, that's for a physical copy to be shipped directly to you. If you wanted a free copy and printed at home, the thing is it's 107 pages every single time. So just saying, that does add up with printer cartridges, y'all. But if someone could never afford a coach and got the physical book or the ebook, it would illuminate things and help them take smaller daily steps that would completely change the trajectory of their life. And for any coach to be able to have an agreement with a client, you have to do the Condor Approach method, the book, so that when we come together for our calls, we can see what's going on. Because honestly, most coaches have no evidence that their stuff works either. It works for some people, but it usually works for the same people that any method would have worked, because that person was a self-starter, independent, committed to
Mm.
their own journey already. And so for me, the Condor Approach is evidence, whether you're a Reiki master, a body worker, or a clinician, that your methodology is working, what things are working, or that the person's not doing the work. And there's evidence of that, which lets you off the hook as a practitioner or as a coach to say to someone, you haven't filled out the book, so do that this week, and then we'll get back on the phone. Because listen, I love y'all and all the clients I've ever had in every capacity. Y'all are liars, bro. Okay, like, I mean that with love, and I'm a liar too. We all are, once you, depending on how you break it down in context. But to say everyone will tell you, I've done everything to save my relationship, to lose weight, to do whatever, I've done
But I
everything.
won't do that. Book.
I just need to go to the jungle for 30 days. And then they go do that. And then 90 days after that, they're back in the same stuff. So what you don't track, you don't change. We are handing you for free if you want. If you go to www.freeguide.vip, or if you want a physical copy, because it is like a journaling workbook, it is easier if you can write inside of it. Just search the Condor Approach on Amazon and change your life. And maybe you'd want to become a coach. Maybe you think the book sucks. Like, great. But if what you're doing right now isn't getting the results that you want, or there was maybe even just a possibility that there might be opportunity there, all I know is more people started asking Tah and I how we've created the life that we have, and journaling and tracking was required.
Agreed. It's still a big part of my life. Every day, writing stuff in this book, tracking myself, going back, and even if I don't track, I can go back 2 weeks ago and see where I was. And I always have a foundation there. This is a really, I said that 3 times. This is this is no, okay. So this is a huge thing for me, tracking. Like, I used to, again, as a nurse, I used to write notes and be able to track back to what was going on with stuff. Documentation is a really wonderful thing. When the way I look at life, I am the scientist. I am also the experiment. And this world is my laboratory. Everything in it is my laboratory. And there's control groups, and there's these groups, and then there's aberrant things that come in, and then you throw in this weird variable. Like, all of this stuff is there. And when I can track it, I can trace back to where things started. I can trace back to where things changed. I can trace back to the food I ate today and say, if I'm feeling wonky or if I'm feeling easy, I can track all of this stuff. And we track the body, we track the emotions, we track the mind and the thought processes, we track the intention in 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening. And people talk a lot of junk about they don't have time. That's the biggest farce in the universe. I don't have time to do it. It's 10 minutes. It's a long time. Listen, there's 168 hours in the week. And we talk about the magic of 168. There's 168 hours in a week. When you add up all the things that you've been doing, the time it takes you to eat, prepare your food, shower, get dressed, get where you're going every single day of the week, you're not adding it up to 168 hours, including with your full-time job, working double time, working overtime for 7 days a week. You're still not getting up to that 168 hours. You have 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening to do this. There is some resistance that may come up, and that resistance may be one of the habits to address. And this is some of the wonderful things when we first started doing this, is people be like, I don't know why I can't do it. What else, how else is this showing up in your life? And we would find out where the habits are. And then people would use that as an intention for their next psychedelic experience. And then they would come back with insight around that. And so this journaling practice, this tracking situation is absolutely wonderful in so many wonderful and creative ways.
Yes, I concur. And anytime I notice within myself that I have resistance to something that's only going to take me 10 minutes, or recognizing, look, there's parts of this that don't resonate for me. What if I don't have to do it perfect, but I stay in the daily habit of tracking, of showing up morning and night and getting more honest with where I really am, how much that changes your life. The more you build self-awareness, that is the gift of these master teachers in plant, animal, and fungi form. They shift your perspective. They help you become self-aware. And in that self-awareness, you start to see trends, you start to see consistencies. And I'll have people, after doing the Condor Approach for a month, be like, wow, I didn't recognize how often I, quote unquote, needed to talk to someone, and I was letting it go on for 5, 6, 7 days, and it's impacting my sleep. But by having the Condor Approach, I saw by day 2 or 3, wow, this is still on my mind, and I need to have this conversation. Those little things add up. It's like apps on your phone. The more apps you have open on your phone, it slows down your processing, it drains your battery.
Yep.
So is the case with your day-to-day life and the things that you're not addressing, not doing, and ignoring. And so it's, even if you don't have time, there is no other way but to make time.
That's
And
right.
if that means that you set it by the toilet and do it while you go to the bathroom, and that's when you do it, so be it. But it's that the difference between you and where you want to go could only be 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. And your refusal to do it is why you are where you are and not where you want to be.
Drop that mic. And that's where we at, y'all. Tracking. If what you don't track, you don't change, in a nutshell. And it's something that I'm a firm advocate on. All of our coaches are on it. It's been wonderful to witness so many people lean into this process and dive into it. And if you don't have the guide, go to freeguide.vip and download it. Get it. Take a look at it.
Free,
Free. And
free
the
90
thing,
free.
free 90 free. And if you have anything like GoodNotes or even just like on your iPad, you can open up the PDF on your iPad and use an Apple Pencil or a stylus and actually write on it in your tablet. And nowadays, tablets, you can get a tablet for $100. Okay, it's not going to be an Apple tablet; it'll be one of those Android tablets. Or I'm not knocking
Still.
Android,
Or you could
but
pay $11.97 a week or
mhm,
$11.99 a week. It comes with a course, teaches
mhm.
you about body mapping, everything that you would need to know for $12 one time. And if it works for you, then do it another week. We see the most results with consistent 30 days.
Yep.
Is that worth your life changing? Not everything is going to be one inhale DMT hit away. Okay. Sometimes. And sometimes you're going to have to actually put forth effort.
Yeah. And
Sorry if no one told you.
yeah, and if you tell me that you don't have $12.95 to get it, and I see you with new Jordans, I'm gonna have something to say about it. I'm like, hey, I noticed you have some new Jordans on. Where's your priorities? And so this is the thing: is this a priority for you? And this is always a choice space, and we are making it easy for you to make a choice. Really easy. Lots of content, lots of free stuff. We want people to have this access to this worldwide. Kole has gone off out on a limb, had this translated into Spanish, Portuguese, German, and French, and and there are more languages to come. So seriously, y'all, get on the wagon, download it, and get it for free, and do this journaling process. It's so awesome, y'all. It really is.
So that's today's show,
Yeah. So
folks.
make sure you subscribe. Click that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast.
Do
It's
it right
really
now.
important. Do it right now.
No
Go
waiting.
right now. Integrate
Pause
that
it.
subscribe
Go
button.
get it. Get
Go
it.
and then
5 stars.
write that in your journal. I subscribed with Tah and Kole today. That would be one of your extra notes. And
And a fancy review that was
that's
very
right.
detailed, descript, and helps other people listen.
That's right. When you drop a review, when you rate us with 5 stars, it puts us in front of more people so more people get access to this free information. So thank you. We love you. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. And we'll
Or
catch
don't.
you.
Do what you want.
No, I want you to have an amazing day. I'm being demanding. And then write it down. Write down about how amazing your day is. I
Let
love
it
you.
suck and be free.
Be easy and be free.
Peace.
Connecting with the self, establishing a relationship with the self primarily, and in a relationship with everything else around.